screaming
My
like...
apologies, Julian. I'm going to have to bail out of here in about 10 minutes.
Okay. We all have lives.
Are you off sailing, Graham?
Sorry?
Are you off sailing?
No. No, we're not doing that at the moment. We're given that a bit of a miss.
Ah.
I think we're just catching up with some social things and a little bit of business as well. So.
Oh,
lovely.
Tell you what, Graham, we went to the ashes tests every day in Adelaide.
I looked for you in the crowd.
We were there. There were quite a lot of people, but we got there nice and early to get good seats, and it went into 5 days here at Adelaide.
5 days?
Yeah. Mm.
Well done.
But Ken will probably be putting the ashes on Foxtel in the lounge, I think, when it starts today again. Channel 7 it's on, but then there's no adverts on Foxtel in the lounge. Not only that, I'm chatting on here.
There you go. Julian, we got a big storm here last night. Thunder and lightning and lots of rain.
Didn't further up.
Wow. Oh.
No, it didn't impact up here. So it was local to Central Coast, I guess.
I think we've been getting the tail end of that cyclone that's been coming up and down the coast.
Yeah, David in Sunshine Coast, they've had 25 mils yesterday, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ballarat had 75 day before last.
Yeah. Now you had heat, didn't you?
Yeah. We've missed most of it where we are.
Yeah.
Well, it's 1 minute past 10.
Okay.
Julian, I think it's probably time to get underway.
Okay, others may join in, or we may be it. That's fine. I am intending to run a workshop by the very nature of the subject that I've chosen, which is using the Bible more personally, using the word more personally. And just quickly, before we get any further into the subject, the outline will be, I'm going to talk around 7 ideas shortly, briefly, to do with the topic in a little while. And then I'm going to put up some messages, 2 of them, and go through them, and you'll see them as screen sharings. And I will tell you as an example of this Bible's personal meaning. And that's the phrase I want you to hold in your mind, please. That will be exempling what I now get from those passages personally. Okay? Personally is the emphasis. And then the 3rd passage, I will not be making comments at all. You will do it to you and bring up any personal connections, insights, responses, reactions, sudden epiphanies, or whatever. And I think the one thing I would say is that when you get close up and personal, there is no mistake making. Okay? If you stay in a kind of church theology approach, you can possibly be right or wrong. And I've had experience of somebody telling me I am wrong. Once you get into the personal approach, nobody can tell you you're wrong because it's personally true for you at this moment. Tomorrow, it may be different. So what I want you to do is enjoy. I want you to enjoy what we're doing and take part in it. I don't want you, because we're workshopping, I don't, hi, new arrivals, I don't want you to mute, okay? Because I want you to be able to come in at any time within reason. But if there's a noise like the dog or the neighbour, then do mute so that we can all carry on. But when the noise stops, turn off your mute or whatever. Okay, so enjoy. And I want to briefly cover, before we have a look at the first screen share, why I'm fascinated, interested and touched by a more personal use of the Bible. Okay, I've spent the last 2 years of the pandemic considerably doing commentaries, spiritual commentaries, but they actually became personal commentaries on 3 books of the Bible. The first book was the book of Joshua, and I did Joshua because there wasn't a Swedenborgian book published available on the book of Joshua at all. It was the only one where nothing was sequentially given about the book of Joshua. And I had wonderful experiences with it. And I began to feel that this is speaking personally as well as spiritually and doctrinally and so on. And one of the things I noticed in Joshua was that in order to cross the Jordan, they were told to go into the promised land. They were told the priests are to carry the ark and to put their foot into the river Jordan, bearing the ark on their shoulders. And at that moment, the waters separated, were held back, and all the people crossed over. Then the priests crossed over, and when they came out with their foot, the river Jordan then reflowed. And I thought that was beautiful, that, you know, the priests are kind of our holy thoughts. I'm being personal. The priests are our holy thinking, feeling. They carry the ark, which of course represents the commandments of God and what God has taught us. And then they just put their foot in the Jordan and there's safe crossing. And the foot is a picture of our practical life, how we live the truth and belief that we have. Okay, so that was quite a big moment for me to experience a personal, really personal use of that particular section of the story. And I moved on and I came eventually towards the end of the book of Judges. And in chapter 19, there is a Levite who has a virgin daughter and a concubine, and he wanders around and he comes to the town in Israel called Gibeah, and the men of Gibeah come to the door and say, "Come out, Levite, we want to know you carnally." And the Levite says, "No, I will bring out my concubine." And the concubine is put out in the street, in the square, and the men of Gibeah ravage her all night. And in the morning, she's slumped against the door of where he's staying. He comes out, she's dead. He cuts her up into 12 pieces and sends each piece round a tribe of Israel. Now, how do I get anything personal from that kind of thing. You could say, well, what's your sexuality? And I would say, yeah, good point, good point. But I think it requires a little bit more care and focus to begin to relate to that kind of story, which is there purposefully in the Bible. And then my third book was the book of Psalms, 150 Psalms. There is no storyline. There's reference to story, but there's no storyline in the book of Psalms. It's all expressions of emotion, belief, experience, good and bad, and so on. And people have said to me about the Psalms, oh, it's terribly tedious and repetitive. It's like the same old record playing. They're all the same. Let me tell you, they're not. There are no two Psalms giving the same personal message to us. So that was my introduction. And as I worked through Joshua, Judges, and the book of Psalms, this was all for New Christian Bible study. I found myself getting more and more interested in a purely, if I can use that word, purely personal meaning to the Bible. Okay, now you may question my right to do that, that's fine. You and I still tend to come from a background of set teachings and known correspondences and such like. But I'm pushing the boundaries. I'm pushing the boundaries and saying the Bible's personal meaning is absolutely vital, because it's about each one of us all the time. Okay. So what I would like to do is, before we come to the first screen share where I'm going to go through, I'll be about an hour and 10 minutes altogether, I think. I want to give you some examples, just run them off of seeing something in the Bible and relating to it personally rather than doctrinally or spiritually or theologically. It says in the book of Leviticus chapter 6, where the priests have to deal with the ashes after the sacrifices, it says, "You shall keep a perpetual fire. It shall never go out." I'm sure you've already got a personal feeling about that statement, that something in us must be kept going, kept burning, kept alive, whether we're up, whether we're down, whatever it is, keep that fire going perpetually. The next one is Jesus, who said, "Do not despise one of these little ones." Well, Jesus was actually talking about children, but little ones can be applied to quite a lot of things. New little feelings, little thoughts, and so on. So I saw a personal application of this, "do not despise one of these little ones," for us to do in our living the word, do what is attainable to us, rather than something big and impossible. Okay? Do a little something. Okay? Then in the Christmas story, it says at the end of the wise men story, the wise men were warned in a dream by an angel to take another way home. And we all know why, at least I'm assuming. We all know why, because of King Herod. And they took another way home. And I personally saw that as doing things differently than the same old way we same old do it, and go down a different path. And then the last one is, by the way, I would say when you read the Bible or the Word, anything, a verse, a chapter, a passage, or whatever it is, look out for a principle that you see in what goes on. Some principle, some kind of law or rule that is important, or a value, or a standard, or a message. And these things can be hinted at, or suggested, or pictured, or even stated. Okay? In Psalm 119:71, it says this. Now, this is a bold, personal, helpful statement. It is good for me that I have been afflicted, because I can then learn your rules. I'll say that again. Thank you, Judy. It is good for me that I have been afflicted, because I can then learn your rules. See? And all these things are kind of bringing out a closer and more relevant to each of us feeling of a personal relationship with the Word. And I mean, I've heard people saying when we read the Word, we should encourage the feeling of actually the Lord speaking to us. Okay? So we're not just looking at it, we're actually in it. Now, I'm going to bring up my first screen share, and some of you will disappear off my screen or not. And what I want to do is encourage you to come in with anything as I rapidly go through 7 points. And I've never used screen share before, so I blooming well hope this works. Okay?
Mhm.
Right. Now, can you all see that? I guess you will.
Yes, it's nice and
Can you
clear.
all say yes or no?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So you can all still hear me and I can hear you.
Yep.
I want to go through these pretty quickly. There is a passage coming up fairly soon that I want to use as an example, but I'll come on to that in a moment. Number one, we're used by and large to the word having, the Bible, having a spiritual meaning. And we know that our spirit is involved, our inner person, our inner life, and so on, our states and so on. But the spiritual meaning can often be, particularly for lifelong churchgoers, it can be set in doctrine and correspondences. And my experience of helping people to get into a often not immediately viewable, visible spiritual meaning is that they tend to become dependent on what they're taught, and also, sadly, to keep it at arm's length from themselves. Okay? So it becomes objective rather than this is about me. Now, I'm not saying it's always like that, but I do feel that that doctrine and correspondence approach can actually lead to dependency and a little bit of fear of getting it wrong and keeping it at arm's length. The word's personal meaning, if we make that shift, brings us into the world of now, states, insights, connections, meaning. And the word personal isn't a Swedenborgian word particularly, although a lot of it is all about personal, but he uses this wonderful word, enlightenment. And basically he says that when we are open to the truth, when we are loving the Lord and wanting to grow in our spiritual life, we are open to enlightenment. And I believe Swedenborg's use of the word enlightenment, and there are hundreds of references to enlightenment in Swedenborg, we're just going to look at one, is his way of saying, deal with it personally, get into it. And I'm going to bring up a passage which is a typical passage of Swedenborg writing about enlightenment. And I want you to notice what he says about it. It's from the Arcana or Secrets of Heaven, 106.3.8. Those who love the Lord above all else and love that all good, truth, salvation, and eternal life are from him, do not have evil or falsity in them when they read the word, because the Lord is then enlightening and leading them. They are thinking from the Lord and affected by the Lord and not thinking of themselves. These are those who understand the word and are affected by it, and they also love to live according to it. I'm just going to read the first 4 lines again. Those who love the Lord above all else and love that all good, truth, salvation, and eternal life are from him do not have evil or falsity in them when they read the word, because the Lord is then enlightening and leading them. Now, what he's basically saying is, if your mind and heart is on the Lord, that clears the way. So you can then safely go into what you get from the Lord's word coming to meet you and be affected by it and then aim to live according to it. So that's a classic enlightenment passage and a very helpful one. Number 2, and I'll bring this up. Okay, personal meaning. Every one of us is a person. What goes on in us? Question mark. What are we made of? Well, we've got our bodies, of course, but more importantly, as Joe said last night, we've got our inner activity, our thoughts, our feelings, our states. And I want you to take up the word states, which sounds a little bit of a kind of technical or scientific word, but our state, you're at the moment in a state, okay? I don't mean in a right old state. Well, I hope not. I mean you're in a state. You could be thrilled, you could be thinking about something going on at home or in your family that's a problem, or you could be bored, or you could be tired because you went to bed too late and all that stuff. But state is a key spiritual word that you and I, whether we're thinking, feeling, and doing, we are in some state. And that state may be good, may be wonderful, or it may be not good. It may be challenging, worrying, and so on. But our states ever alter. They just move on. And I hope you've had the experience of a high state leading to a challenging state, leading to a high state return as you work with that, and so on. Okay. I'll just finish 2 and then I'll stop for any quick comments and things. The word exists to help us become aware of our states. Okay? Now, or a little bit retrospectively, that state I was in yesterday, or a state that I long to be in some time to come. But our states, the word is shining a torch on our states. And we can see them, accept them, understand them, and manage them. Okay? I love the word manage. It's my key word for regeneration. How do we manage the state we find ourselves in? And a personal meaning of some part of the word is not doctrine and correspondences. Well, it is. I'm not putting those down. I'm just saying that the personal meaning is living, fluid, felt, experienced, and even playful. Playful. Toss it around. Find out where it could lead to. Give it a go. Suck it and see, you know? And today's gets will be different tomorrow, because tomorrow you're in a different state. So I'll just break off there for a little while and say anybody that wants to say, comment on anything, feel free.
I think what you're saying just then was talking about imagination.
It can involve imagination. Yes, that's good.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, playing around with it, it needs some sort of, I guess, personal input, personal creative input.
Yes.
I guess this is what you really,
Yeah.
this is your message today, isn't it?
Yes. I would say, Wayne, it's if we bring in imagination, I think one way of putting that is we've got to bring something into it to meet it halfway. And it can be imagination, or it can be, you know, a fairly logical sequence of thinking, but to toss it around and accept that what comes out to you is right for you at the moment. Okay?
Yeah. Personally applicable.
Yes, I mean, you may not see the application straight away, but I mean, or you might, you know, in the personal approach, all sorts of things can happen. Elizabeth.
Julian, I have a question. Sometimes if I'm reading bits that are not the word, such as Paul's letters, I find them jarring because I'm thinking, is this what Jesus meant, or is it just simply Paul's interpretation or commentary on something that he never knew Jesus, did he? So is what you're saying predominantly from the word?
I would say the bottom line is that all spiritual writing can be personally approached. But I understand where you're coming from with the epistles and so on. I feel that they bring in some fairly hard or set theological statements that are quite a way removed from a fluid personal approach. And if you experience jarring, I don't want to start counseling you, but I would say that could well be an indication to leave alone for the moment and go somewhere else, and maybe, you know, in a little while you can come back and get something that's really helpful from them. You know, if anything jars, I would put it down and go somewhere else.
Thank you.
I've actually found some wonderful stuff in the epistles, but taking it not at face value, looking beyond and past the actual literals, what it's saying.
Yes.
And it's taken me years and years and years to come to terms with woman subject yourself to your husband. That grated like anything, but I have all of a sudden seen that to be something wonderful.
Yes.
But it's got nothing to do with men and women.
Exactly. I don't want to go into gender,
No.
but I take your point, Judy, and I'm with you all the way on that. Okay. Can we move on? I can't see everybody, so if you're putting your hand up to speak, I've only got 4 out of 8. So let's move on. Number 3 is what a personal meaning isn't. A personal meaning or a personal use of the word isn't self-preoccupation and, oh, it's all about me. I don't like that approach because it's not the right way round. We need a bit of that, but we should be looking outwards to others and serving rather than it being all about me. I prefer to see a personal meaning being for me, not about me. For me to see and get and know and apply. And then I'm not going me, 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 you see? Number 4, taking the word literally. I love this one. Taking the word literally. We've had 2 examples just now from you about being careful about taking the Bible literally. And we're often told not to take it so because it's full of strong statements, full of appearances, full of contradictions, full of traps, full of whatevers, if we just take it literally. But we must take the word emotionally, literally. And that's essential so that we actually get the feeling of what's going on or being said. Because, as I've listed here, the word, the Bible, is calling, warning, commanding, pleading, cradling, promising, weeping, empathizing, having joy about us or for us, and so on. So the text, and I don't want to go into doctrine on this, the text of the Bible is actually tremendously important. Otherwise, it's a scientific textbook. You know, got no emotion, but full of rules and laws and so on. But the word is poetic and the word is emotional. Okay? 5, and I'll keep the pace going because I'm watching time. Spotting personal meanings. Getting into our own inner spiritual relationships. What goes on in us. And when you go into your relationships, not your husband and wife, children and parents stuff, but your spiritual relationships, you come into a number of interplays, okay? You are more complex than you think. The interplay, the core one is the interplay. It's called a marriage by Swedenborg. The interplay of good and, thank you, the interplay of good and truth. And the good that truth leads to, and the truth that good creates. Okay? All this interplay. And if you start listing interplays that go on in you and anybody, it's quite fascinating. We have them all. We feel, we think, we're hopeful, we're despairing, or whatever word you want to use. We're rigid, and rigidity has a value to it. We tend to knock rigidity. Be careful, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're rigid, but we're also flexible. We're judgmental, yet we're compassionate. And a very important one, we're public, you know, how I come across. We're public and we're private. So all these interplays are bubbling away, bouncing around in our inner spiritual relationships. And 6 and 7, I'll just run through them and then we'll get on with the passage. Hold, when you read the word, open and want to be moved by it or relate to it, whatever. Hold the Lord's love for you in your heart and mind. Start reading and be willing to be led. You might even offer a little short prayer, you know, open yourself to me, whatever. And number 7, how to help a launch. I think 2 good questions about anything are, what is this saying to me? What is this saying to me now? And secondly, what is it asking of me? That's the challenging one, okay? What's it asking of me? Now, I've run through those. What we're going to do from now on is work with 3 passages, 2 which I will share what I got yesterday from them, and the 3rd one will be looking at together. And I'll just overlay the first passage. Okay, first book of Samuel. Israel asks for a king, okay? Give me a king like everybody else has got. Come on. Samuel told all the Israelites to come together with the Lord at Mizpah. Samuel told, who was a prophet, Samuel told the Israelites, the Lord, the God of Israel, says, I led Israel out of Egypt. I saved you from Egypt's control and from the other kingdoms that tried to hurt you. But today you've rejected your God. Your God saves you from all your troubles and problems. But you say, no, we want a king to rule us. Come, stand before the Lord in your families and tribes. Samuel brought all the tribes of Israel near. Then Samuel began to choose the new king. First, the tribe of Benjamin was chosen. Samuel told each family in the tribe of Benjamin to pass by. Matri's family was chosen. Then Samuel told each man in Matri's family to walk by. Saul, the son of Kish, was chosen. But when the people looked for Saul, they could not find him. Then they asked the Lord, "Has Saul come here yet?" The Lord said, "Saul is hiding behind the supplies." The people ran and took, I think the original says, dragged. The people ran and took Saul out from behind the supplies. Saul stood up among the people. He was a head taller than anyone else. Samuel said to all the people, "See the man whom the Lord has chosen. There is no one like Saul among the people." Then the people shouted, "Long live the king." So a story, an event, and a lot happening, and a lot of commentary on it and explanation and so on. So what did I get from this? And I'm going to allow anybody to add to that with these first two passages. What I'm now getting, and you will now get other things. We want a king to rule us. I'll direct my own doings. Thank you. I want to fit in and feel accepted. It doesn't say in this passage, but it actually says the Israelites wanted to be like the nations around them, all of whom had kings. And they had this God and his bloke, you know. I want to fit in and be accepted. I want to have a nice car parked in my driveway. And then you get this choosing of the one who will be the king. And sometimes in the Bible, they do it by lot, but here it implies that Samuel chose each tribe, each family, each man by the way they appeared, okay? We don't really know, but we do know that they were looked at, seen, and chosen or not. And that, I feel personally, is taking a full inventory of me. Go through all of Julian. And we should do that sometimes. Don't do it all the time. You'll go to a mental asylum. You'll be driven crazy if you become so introspective. But occasionally, self-scrutinize fairly methodically and fully. Start with the big stuff, get into the detail, and choose one thing that you want to be important in your being, whatever it is, and select what you choose and what looks to be right for you. And then at the end, Saul is chosen, but he's not there. Well, that's very personal, you know. Sometimes we just run a mile. We run a mile from God. We run a mile from the truth. We run a mile from anything which tends to be overwhelming to us, or however it is. We often run it's not for me. I can't do that. It's not good. So, you know, hiding away is a very personal and a very human kind of response. Even just saying nothing, you know. I've been in a school staff room, and boy, out of the staff room, all the teachers were saying, we've got to get this done soon, okay? Go into the staff meeting, nobody says a word because your job's on the line, you see? So keeping silent can be a way of us not being in it.
Julian, can I jump in?
Yes, of course.
Just on that particular point, I certainly get all of what you're saying about Saul being hidden. And it seems really odd in the story that you know, he's had all of the people parade before Samuel, and he's chosen the one who doesn't parade. And
good point.
And to me, it suggests, you know, the sum of the whole is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
And it's that little bit of unknown extra, which is actually the important thing. That's what sort of jumps out to me at that. It's that little bit of hidden something you can't put your finger on, but that's the thing that ought to rule. So that was the thing that jumped out at me.
Yeah, good point, David. Thank you. That is quite humbling, that all the things we come up with are probably not hitting the mark.
Yeah.
Number 2, Saul is found behind supplies. You know, all of Israel's there. They're going to have to eat. They're going to have water. They're going to have sleeping places or whatever. And spiritual supplies are what supply help to us. So don't think of them as a pile of baggage. Think of them as leads to come and help you get, understand, feel, and choose what you go for. Saul is found not behind the rubbish tip. He's found behind the supplies. He comes out. No, he doesn't. They pull him out, and he stands before the people, and he is a head taller than anybody else. So what a shift from being cringing and whinging to being standing up a head taller. And I thought, wow, that's like a kind of promise. That's a kind of statement of any person that they have potential and something in them which gives them what I've called here heaven cred. Okay? And, you know, we've got it. And as David just says, we might not even be aware of that. We may be living too much in the twilight zone, you see. But once Saul is brought out, he stands and he is a head taller than anyone. So anybody who looks can say, that's Saul. He's the tallest bloke here. And look over the heads of all the others and everybody can see Saul, you see. So a wonderful story with a lot of interwoven personal meaning. Is there anybody else who wants to chuck in a get?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking through all of that and reading and listening to everything you were saying, and suddenly that passage had like an overall meaning for me that from the beginning, it was like a person looking for their personal love, their ruling love. And they kept on going through things that they thought it might be, but then it wasn't. And then suddenly they found their ruling love to be the right thing, as is said, with all the supplies, which is the spiritual input from heaven. And then you know that's the ruling love.
Thanks.
Person.
There. Yeah, that's lovely. That's very, very helpful. And that discovery helps you stand confidently tall. Okay, now...
Can I just add something quickly?
Judy.
I could see for myself that that's the state I'm in when I cannot truly acknowledge that all life, that my life is the Lord's. And so having that king to lead or direct until I can relinquish that love of having life in myself is operating.
Yeah.
And there are more kings to come. So there are more
kings to come.
More attributes given to keep me going until I can actually relinquish that life is my own.
Yes. Yeah, that's a super thought, because in a lot of circumstances in life, we look to the boss, the principal, the judge, the policeman, the king, and feel that, without that, we'd be, all over the place. So it gives us steadying. And you were saying, until we can actually pick up on my life is my own from the Lord. See?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's my own. It's the paradox, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
The more I acknowledge that it's the Lord in me, the more it becomes the appearance of being my own.
Yes, exactly. Yes, divine providence, something. The more a person turns to the Lord, the more they are master or mistress of themselves, and the more they feel the Lord.
Yeah.
That paradoxical equation. Yes, so that's a lovely addition, Judy. Can we move on to the second, which is a very different passage from the Gospels, and I'll bring it up. If anybody is dying to say something, don't forget it, bring it in at the end. Right, now see how you go with this. Matthew 10. Do not think, this is Jesus, do not think I've come to bring peace to the earth. I didn't come to bring peace, I came to bring a sword. I've come to make this happen. A son will turn against his father. A daughter will turn against her mother. A daughter-in-law will turn against her mother-in-law. Even members of your own family will be your enemies. Those who love their father or mother more than they love me are not worthy of me. Those who love their son or daughter more than they love me are not worthy of me. Those who will not take their cross and follow me are not worthy of me. Those who try to keep the life they have will lose it. Those who give up their life for me will find true life. Whoever accepts you also accepts me. Whoever accepts me accepts the one who sent me. Whoever accepts a prophet because he is a prophet will get the same reward a prophet gets. Whoever accepts a godly person just because that person is godly will get the same reward a godly person gets. Whoever among my followers helps any of these little ones will definitely get a reward, even if they only give them a cup of cold water. Now, I call that Jesus hitting below the belt. He's picked an imagery which is particularly, how dare you for me? And I wrestle with his audacity. What I'm now getting, and you will now get whatever other things, I feel Jesus is jabbing his finger in my chest. Oi, you've got to get this. It looks like I've been making assumptions about God. Oh yes, I love God, but he stirs things up. He's really serious. Jesus is hitting me where it hurts with all my loved ones and family. Maybe anything less than that would let me feel I'm off the radar screen. These family members, maybe I will fall out with Joel and David will fall out with me over something, but I don't think it's only about that, you see. These family members aren't physical, aren't such. They're really my cozy family. So what's going to come first, cozy or Jesus? It's so different to what I've been expecting. It's topsy-turvy, it's inversion, it's turning it round into another whole way of seeing. And Jesus is being emphatic and pulling no punches. And it's up to only me to make the decision what will come first. He's telling me, and I haven't any excuses to fall back on, just do one thing that is sincere, genuine, and for its own sake. So very different passage and instruction, no story except our story, and perhaps the most vehement language Jesus ever speaks in. And I do know that Jesus, who said, if your eye offends you, pluck it out. You know, pluck it out. It's better to go into heaven with one eye than into hell with two when they are not seeing right. See? So Jesus uses overstatement, but I don't think it's overstatement here. I think this is actually spot on. Okay? And all I can say is, you know, it's there, it's in the Gospels. The danger is being too familiar with the text and saying, oh, yeah, I've heard that one before, and thinking no more about it. What can Jesus do to get us reacting, you see? Anything that anybody wants to add before we look at your go?
It comes across to me as being the truth leading, and the truth in a regenerative sense, if being applied, will shine that light into my mind and show up the loves that are no longer serving, that need to be identified and moved away from. And I don't want to give them up. They are entrenched in my very being. So to have to turn away and relinquish them is not something I want to do, but it's necessary. And it has to be done little by little. And it has to be done by the Lord's two-edged sword, to be shown and to be separated and to be gently turned and led from.
Well said, Judy. I hear you. I also think one redeeming statement in this passage, which talks so much about losing what is dear to us, or struggling with what is dear to us, is 2/3 of the way down. Those who try to keep the life they have will lose it. Those who give up their life for me will find true life. And I actually don't think, or I suggest, that at the end of things, we don't have to lose anything. And that's our fear.
Yeah, I guess it's a reordering more than a losing, isn't it?
It's a reordering, and it's a seeing my son, daughter, daughter-in-law in the light of my love for the Lord.
Yeah.
So it's kind of changing the priorities. And he's hammering, you know, if you love me, if you love them more than if you love them more than you love me, you're not worthy of me.
Yeah.
I've got to come first. And it's not said, you know, Jesus isn't saying, I've got to come first because he wants, you know, to be so over everything. Jesus doesn't want to be over everything. He wants to bring happiness, peace, and joy to us. But he's got to be CEO in order for that to be able to happen, you see. And we keep our son, our daughter-in-law, because now they're all relating in light of our supreme love of the Lord.
Yeah, agreed.
Anything else? Okay. We are at 11 o'clock. We'll have 10 minutes
Love this one.
on this last passage. I haven't given it a thought. It's totally
Thoughts are not your thoughts.
fresh.
It's not your ways.
I'm not going to lead any suggestions. I'll just leave it with the group. And it might be good after a while to get rid of the screen share and be able to see everybody who's with us. Okay, so here we go. Isaiah 55, part of it. The Lord says, my thoughts are not like yours. Your ways are not like mine. Just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. Rain and snow fall from the sky and don't return until they've watered the ground. Then the ground causes the plants to sprout and grow, and they produce seeds for the farmer and food for people to eat. In the same way, my words leave my mouth, and they don't come back without results. My words make the things happen that I want to happen. They succeed in doing what I send them to do. So you will go out from there with joy. You will be led out in peace. When you come to the mountains and hills, they will begin singing. All the trees in the fields will clap their hands. Large cypress trees will grow where there were thorn bushes. Myrtle trees will grow where there were weeds. All this will happen to make the Lord known, to be a permanent reminder of his goodness and power. Now I'll go up to the top and just give you a moment, and then I'll move it down to the bottom. In a moment, I'm going to stop sharing. Run off and grab a Bible.
Out of here.
Okay, here we go. How do I get, I'm a real Dumbo with this stuff. How do I get everybody pictured? I'm seeing Judy and Len big time.
So Julian, top right-hand corner on the view button, you want the gallery.
Oh, okay. Hi, Simon. Hi. Yeah, okay. Over to you. Right.
Say, hang on, yeah, I'm unmuted. The part that leapt out to me was my words have the effect that I want to have. I can't quote it exactly because it's not there, but just that sense of you can rely on me to give you the truths, the insights, whatever it is that you need to really flourish, for the cypress trees to grow in your mind, for there to be joy and clapping. And it's just like a huge sense of relief, you know, that the divine is saying right then and there, I'm going to give you the words. I'm going to give you what you need. And it'll have the effect that I want. Maybe not what you want, Roz, but it's going to have the effect and wonderful things will happen. It was just joyful just to have that confidence being expressed.
Yeah, that jumped out at me too. There's something of an inevitability about it. And it's almost like, you know, look out, you better get out of the way. You know, this is going to happen whether you like it or not. So, you know, get with the program sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, and just have a peep at Isaiah. I'll get chapter 55.
And the other thing that jumped out at me, as no one else is saying anything, is the return, which happens a couple of times. So, and it's right at the start, that the water, the rain falls, but then it returns, and the return and the growth that return brings about or represents. So it's a couple of times through that passage that kind of really stood out to me. And again, there's something of an inevitability about it, that what is good and what is true will always succeed. And the question is, are we standing in the way, or are we holding on to it and going with it ourselves?
Yeah, I've got a literal translation up in front of me, and it's really lovely. It says, for as descending is the downpour and the snow from heavens, yet there is not returning, but rather soaks the earth and causes it to bear and to sprout, and gives seeds to the sower and bread to the eater. So shall my word, which shall fare forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but rather it does that which I desire and prospers in that for which I sent it. I thought that was really nice, this idea of it soaking the earth and creating growth.
I like the bit about the mountains in the end. Mountains I sort of always see as my difficulties that I've got to try and conquer, but they're singing and clapping. So even though we have difficulties, we'll be celebrating, because hopefully we conquer them with the help of the Lord.
Yeah, I had one little thought, and I've just realised it's verse 11, when it's talking about, so shall the words leave my mouth and go forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, or to us empty. I thought that must mean that you should be very careful what you say, because once you say something, you can't take it back. And so you must always use kind words and not be unkind to people, because then you would hurt them, and that's not a good thing. But you can't take words back, So I thought you need to be careful what you say with words. That was just one little thought on one of the verses.
Yeah, that passage keeps reminding me of that other passage somewhere in the Bible where it talks about it's not what goes into a man that defiles him, but what comes out of the man. Just seems to connect back to that.
I actually liken it to the vine and the branches. It's the Lord flowing through his goodness and truth out to us. If we receive it, then we're like the branch, we're pruned, but we eventually bear fruit, and it's good fruit. So it's providence, it's growth, it's the Lord's care over all, it's his overarching direction and love. It's just a very moving passage for me. I love it.
Yeah, it's like the dynamics of existence, if I can use a ghastly phrase.
And it's creation too. It's cyclical.
Yes, yeah.
It's the process. It's descending and ascending, and round it goes in a spiral.
After every night, morning will come.
Okay, one last comment, and then we'll just kind of heartfeltly wrap up the session. Anything else?
I thought it was interesting. It says, my thoughts aren't your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways. And it just coincidentally seemed to be illustrated by that last chapter, when we were looking at, you're kind of at war with those who are closest to you.
Yep. Oh, I think spiritually things are, I've always said that to work with spiritual things is actually at the end of the day easier than working with what goes on under the bonnet of a car, because everything is part of the one whole, which is God, and fits in with everything else in a kind of holistic entity. So, I think practicing spiritual life, we talk about it bringing us peace and rest, but it actually does bring peace and rest because it is not disjointed and overwhelming in its component Lego parts.
Yeah.
I once, years ago, I once said, I actually think Swedenborg, who wrote these 30 volumes of amazing stuff, you can bring it down to 7 fundamental kind of essences. Really bring it down to 7. Okay, that sounds, can you tell me what those 7 are? But actually, one's joined, it's a little bit like the Enneagram. One's joined to 4, and 4's joined to 7, and 7's joined to 2, and 2's joined to 8, and so on, you see. There's your interaction and dynamic. And we do love biscuits in the tin because we know where we are. But when the biscuits start joining each other, it's a little bit kind of weird and wonderful.
Sorry, Julian, what's that about biscuits?
We finished and you can have lunch or morning tea.
Don't give big.
I'll just say this and then I'll hand back to David. I hope what I've done is probably reinforce rather than introduce. I hope that I've been able to, with you, to reinforce this personal meaning. When many years ago, people were not encouraged to get into because they could be wrong, and the church's job was to keep them right. We don't live in that culture now, thank the Lord. So it's personal, and it will be all the things that we've been talking about it, but it's a kind of wonderful liberation. It really is liberating, because you don't have to remember everything you've been told.
Well, thank you very much, Julian, for what you've led us through this morning. It's been very enjoyable. I always find it's interesting the way in which the word shows its new characters and new qualities as you respond in conversation with others as well. We each bring something to our understanding of the word, and having it in conversation with others. Just I'm having a conversation on Reddit, for example, at the moment with someone, and just finding it just a wonderful experience because each new situation and each new state, and as we meet in our different states, the word just seems to sparkle and shine. And I really have enjoyed it. So thank you very much. I will just say to everyone, I look forward to seeing as many of you who can join us at Sarah's session this afternoon or this morning still in Perth. But the details again will be different from the ones you've just used to look at this morning's session with Julian. But I do look forward to seeing any one of you who can manage this afternoon. So thank you again, Julian. Much enjoyed.
Thank you, Julian.
Look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Thank you.
Mm.
Okay, bye.
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 Just
Just